Hello everyone and welcome to the lesson if you're new. My name is Justina. Today I thought I would like to share with you my thoughts about my country, Lithuania, and tell you about the things that I really love about it and that make me want to keep living here. Especially that I have other places to compare it with. I used to live for a little while in the Netherlands, Spain and Egypt. But I will say not just that. Like any other place, Lithuania has its own disadvantages, which, to say at the very least, annoy me. So, today you will hear the bad stuff too. Before we begin, I just want to clarify that this is my own personal opinion, and other people might have different views and experiences regarding Lithuania. If you currently live or have lived in Lithuania before, please share your own thoughts in the comment section. I would really like to know how different everyone's experience can be regarding my home country, Lithuania. Now let's begin with the things that I love about Lithuania. First is how clean it is. Yes, Lithuania is really clean. There is generally no trash thrown around and the streets are kept up, even in the most populous city, Vilnius. It's just so much cleaner than most of the places that I have visited before. Of course, sometimes trash accumulates, and sadly that happens mostly in the nature and during the summer holidays when everyone keeps going to the lakes and campsites. But these places do get a regular cleaning too. Also, there is a big yearly event held all around the country in early spring. It's called Darom. We are doing it in English. And at that time, whole communities gathered together to clean the trash from public places. Even during primary school years, my whole school used to gather together to clean a large forest park around the school. That is a great idea for spring cleaning, and at the same time raising consciousness about the environment from a very young age. The second thing I love about Lithuania is the nature. If you have watched my previous videos, then probably this is no surprise to you. I really do love nature here. Lithuania is a country that still has a lot of it, even within the cities. I love having nature available all around. I especially missed this while I lived in Egypt, where Cairo and Alexandria was more like a concrete jungle, and any side of a park was a long drive away through crowded streets. But here it is everywhere. The cities have parks, even forests, and outside the city boundaries is just forests and fields, with some little villages speckled around. While the majority of land is agricultural in Lithuania, still almost 18% of the whole country is protected areas. Also, Lithuania has 30 regional and 5 national parks, and each of them is beautiful in its own way. Another thing I love about Lithuania is that the cities are not crowded here. Well, some people might see it as a disadvantage, but me personally, I don't like having a walk in a crowded city street. Of course, it is barely possible to get the streets that crowded here. Even in the biggest city, the capital, Vilnius, the population is just over 500,000. The city streets get crowded only during some big public events. Otherwise, there is plenty of space to keep that 2 meters distance required these days. However, if you are in a car, the streets can get crowded during the rush hour. But it is not so bad when compared with bigger cities, where traffic jams can last all day long. Also, it is possible to manage the commute in a way to avoid the big crowd. The fourth thing I love about Lithuania is that it is a generally safe country. I feel safe when walking around, walking alone in nature. I would even feel safe enough to let my child alone to go to school when he reaches the primary school age. There is a lot of space, no shady corners, and consuming alcohol in public is also forbidden, so there are less chances to see anyone suspicious walking around. Drug use is also not as common in Lithuania as in many other European countries. I also didn't hear about any districts that would be called a no-go zone. Of course, everyone has to have some common sense about their own security. Theft happens here too, but only if you don't take care of your own belongings, leaving them around unattended for a long time. So, in general, it is definitely not like Barcelona in here, where you have to watch every step you take. The fifth thing that I think is great about Lithuania is having a universal healthcare system. Well, this might be a little controversial, but hear me out. Many Lithuanians do curse it because the system is not perfect. But I think that just having this as an option is a great gift to the society, which some countries cannot provide. Yes, the public healthcare here is not the best. There are long waiting lines if you need a consultation with a specialist doctor. But when it comes to anything urgent, I am 100% content and I can sleep peacefully through the night, knowing that if something happens, the ambulance will come and all the necessary measures will be taken to save a person's life, and that person will not have to pay a cent for it. Unfortunately, in many countries, when it comes to accidents, some people still have to think if we can afford to call the ambulance. So yes, I am grateful that neither me nor anyone else in this country has to think about that. And the sixth thing I love about Lithuania is that Lithuanians are on time. Yes, Lithuanians are quite punctual people. If a problem arises and we cannot come on time, they will always let you know in advance, even if it's just 10-15 minutes. Most Lithuanians are true to their word when it comes to appointments, and they love it. This makes everything much more efficient. Of course, I realized this while I was living down south in Spain and Egypt, where the concept of time, if I put it lightly, is a little unclear. Now, on the other hand, Lithuania is not all sunshine and rainbows. It also has some things that I don't like about it at all. So here are the things that I hate about Lithuania. The first and probably the lightest of them all is short summers. Honestly, Lithuanian summer is way too short. Everyone loves it when it begins, but when within a blink of an eye, it's gone. Technically, summer in Lithuania begins in June and ends in August, but the reality can be a little bit different. Usually the beginning of June is still quite cold, and very few people even dare to go swimming in the lakes or the sea. The real summer season begins somewhere in the middle or end of June and lasts throughout July and the beginning of August. In the second half of August, however, the weather is already quite cold and it is not so pleasant anymore to do summer activities, especially water activities. It is also the time to prepare for another school and work year, so the holiday season feeling fades quickly. This year too, August was kind of cold and felt more like September, with the temperature barely reaching 20 degrees Celsius. So in reality, Lithuania gets like 2 months of summer? That's frustrating. Well, in the recent years, climate change had been doing something to the weather too. So sometimes there would be a heat wave in May or early September. But I don't think that it's supposed to be any good news, since when climate change affects nature in a negative way. The second thing I hate about Lithuania is the Lithuanian idea of celebrating something, which is basically drinking until you pass out. This tradition has been here for decades, and it's a sad leftover of the Soviet mentality. Still, many people, especially older generations, think that drinking alcohol is the only way to celebrate something. So even religious holidays like Christmas and Easter is just another opportunity to get wasted. Well, I don't mean that everyone should just stop drinking completely. I don't see anything bad about drinking a moderate amount of alcohol. It's just that a lot of people still don't know when to stop when it comes to drinking. If we look at statistics, alcohol consumption in Lithuania is one of the highest in the world. But on the bright side, the government has been doing something, and in the last 5 years, the consumption of alcohol has decreased by 17%. But even with such a decrease, alcohol consumption in Lithuania is still 35% higher than the European Union average. I hope that this will continue to change in the future and wish that people would see celebration as something more than just drinking alcohol. The third thing that is bothering me is that most Lithuanians have a very negative mentality when it comes towards other Lithuanians and the country itself. Well, I don't say that everyone is like this. You still can find a positively thinking person, but the majority is not like that. A usual Lithuanian person will always find energy to complain, but they would rarely look around to see what is good. Generally, the scapegoat of their misfortunes is the government, but this can apply to absolutely everything and everyone around. And we do try to bring everyone else down to their level of negativity. There even are jokes about this. Anyway, something has to change here. Lithuanians really do need to relax a bit and find ways to enjoy life more. The next point is actually coming from my husband, who is not Lithuanian, but since I have traveled more, I see it now too. So here it is. Lithuanians are quite closed people. This especially applies to those who live outside the biggest cities. The people are not willing to meet someone new and are less approachable than, say, people from the more southern countries. It is true that the people from the north are much more closed in general, and Lithuania is no exception here. Yet I wish that Lithuanians would start to open up more and be willing to meet new people. Another thing that I hate about Lithuania is also related to new people. It is how the government and many people are so against immigrants. I understand that at the moment the situation at the border is quite tough with the Iraqi and other migrants coming from Belarus. But this point is not about this particular situation, especially that everyone knows that most of these migrants see Lithuania just as a gateway to reach other countries in the European Union. What I want to talk about is the general negativity towards the immigrants, those who want to come to Lithuania and stay here. And this comes not only from the people, but from the government too. I get it that it's like a trend nowadays in many countries to be against immigration, but many of those countries have an overpopulation problem. But here, Lithuanian population is shrinking, and quickly. And this is what troubles me the most about this attitude. Lithuania needs more people. The population is declining very quickly. It's been declining since the 90s, and in the last decade Lithuania lost more than 12% of its population, which includes emigration and deaths. So the country really needs more people, but it seems that it doesn't want to accept them. This leads me to my last point, and the saddest of them all, I think. It is that there still is a lot of racism in Lithuania. Lithuanians are homogeneous and conservative people, and even historically Lithuanians didn't have much chance of seeing more cultures and races. Only after joining the European Union and the NATO in 2004, more people from different cultures and continents started to come. Unfortunately, many of them are still seen as an exotic attraction to the locals, and even in the media sometimes. Except of Vilnius, which is becoming quite multicultural, in the rest of the country, problems occur very often to people who look different. On the other hand, I think that this issue is slowly changing for the better, especially when I compare the country what it looked like 10-15 years ago. So here we are, all the things that I love and hate about Lithuania. In total, at least for me and people surrounding me, the positives are outweighing the negatives. And in general, I love living here and don't wish to move anywhere else. But an occasional sunny vacation is necessary if you have to live here through a winter. Anyway, please let me know in the comments what are the things that you love and hate about the place you live in. And thanks for watching. See you next time.